The day everything changed is etched in my memory, not because I expected it, but because I never could have imagined it. When I look back now, I almost laugh at how perfect everything seemed, how secure I felt, and how certain I was that the life I had built was unshakable. From the beginning, I believed we had something rare, something people spent lifetimes searching for. Our story wasn't one born out of chaos or desperation. It felt natural, as if two pieces of a puzzle had finally locked into place. I trusted that bond more than anything else, and in many ways, that trust was the very thing that blinded me. When I first met my partner, there was an ease in the way we connected. Conversations flowed without effort, laughter came often, and there was a warmth in their presence that drew me in instantly. They weren't just a lover, they were a confidant, a companion, someone I thought I could tell every secret to without hesitation. We planned futures together, spoke of dreams, and leaned on each other during the rough patches life threw our way. I told myself, this is it, this is the person I will grow old with. Those early years felt golden, every moment tinted with affection and hope. Our daily life only strengthened that belief. We built rituals that seemed so small from the outside but meant everything to me. Mornings began with coffee together, the aroma filling the kitchen while we exchanged sleepy smiles. Evenings were often simple, shared meals, conversations about work, and sometimes quiet silences that felt comfortable rather than empty. I cherished how we could sit side by side, saying nothing, yet feel entirely connected. Friends admired the relationship, calling it solid, enviable, the kind people wished for but rarely found. And I believed them, because I felt it too. Trust was never something I questioned. If they came home late, I assumed work had been overwhelming. If they seemed distracted, I attributed it to stress or exhaustion. I prided myself on not being the jealous type, on not doubting the person I loved. It felt like a strength, a foundation that made us unshakable. I reminded myself that relationships were built on faith, and I had no reason to think otherwise. In my eyes, love wasn't about suspicion, it was about belief. But looking back, there were moments, subtle and fleeting, that I brushed aside far too easily. The occasional unanswered call, the text messages replied to with vague explanations, the sudden need for privacy that hadn't been there before. At the time, I convinced myself it was nothing. Everyone needs space, I thought. Everyone deserves moments that belong solely to them. I never wanted to be the kind of partner who doubted or accused without cause. So I ignored the tiny cracks in the glass, believing the surface was still whole. And that is where I now see my greatest mistake. I mistook silence for peace, distance for independence, and excuses for truth. I believed so fiercely in the love we had built that I didn't recognize when it had started to shift. I told myself we were strong, that everything was fine, and that trust was enough to carry us through anything. I didn't see the storm forming quietly in the distance, waiting for the day it would finally break apart the life I thought was unshakable. The first signs were so ordinary that I almost laughed at myself for noticing them. A late return home one evening with the explanation of extra work didn't strike me as unusual at first. We all have busy days, I reminded myself. But when those evenings stretched into a pattern, longer hours, vague stories, tired excuses, I began to feel a whisper of doubt settle inside me. Still, I buried it under the faith I had always held. Love, I told myself, deserved the benefit of the doubt. Gradually, the changes became harder to ignore. Their phone, once casually left on the table, was now always face down, sometimes carried into the bathroom. Text tones were silenced, and when I asked lightly who had messaged, the answer was often dismissive. There were new clothes too, chosen with more care than usual, fragrances I hadn't smelled before, small changes that might have seemed flattering if they hadn't come alongside a growing emotional distance. Smiles felt forced, conversations clipped, and affection was rationed in a way that left me unsettled. Inside me, two voices battled constantly. One said I was imagining things, projecting fears onto innocent habits. The other whispered that something was terribly wrong, that I was ignoring the truth staring me in the face. I wanted so badly to trust the life we had built that I silenced the second voice, convincing myself that doubt was disloyalty. Yet, each time I tried to brush away the unease, it returned stronger, pressing against my chest until I could no longer breathe it away. There were moments when the evidence was undeniable. I remember finding a receipt for a dinner for two at a place neither of us had mentioned visiting. The date didn't align with any occasion I knew of, and when I asked about it, the explanation was casual but unconvincing. Another time, I noticed a faint trace of perfume on their jacket, a scent I didn't own. My stomach knotted, but my mouth betrayed me, choosing silence over confrontation. I told myself that asking would make me look paranoid, that my trust was supposed to mean letting go of these suspicions. But silence did not bring peace. It brought insomnia, long nights staring at the ceiling, questions circling endlessly in my mind. My heart wanted to believe, but my instinct screamed that something was unraveling behind my back. Every odd glance at the phone, every delay in returning home, every forced smile became another stone added to the weight pressing me down. I felt like a stranger in my own life, walking through familiar routines while carrying a storm inside me that no one else could see. Finally, I realized denial had become more painful than the truth could ever be. I couldn't continue pretending everything was fine while living in the shadows of doubt. I needed to know. Whether it shattered me or set me free, I had to open my eyes fully. It was then that I made the quiet decision to stop ignoring the signs, to face whatever waited for me, no matter how devastating it might be. I remember the day clearly, though part of me wishes I could forget it. I hadn't planned to come home early, but fate has a way of guiding us to the truths we try hardest to avoid. As I walked toward the door, my heart carried a strange heaviness, though I couldn't explain why. The house was quiet from the outside, yet as I stepped closer, I caught a sound, soft, muffled, almost like laughter. My chest tightened instantly, and every step forward felt heavier than the last. The key in my hand trembled as I fit it into the lock. My mind screamed at me to stop, to turn away, to cling to ignorance because ignorance was still safe. But something deeper inside urged me to face it. I pushed the door open slowly, and for a moment, the world seemed to still. The scent of unfamiliar perfume floated through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of wine. My stomach churned as my eyes scanned the space, already knowing what they would find. What I saw confirmed every doubt I had suppressed, every warning sign I had brushed aside. There, in the space that was supposed to be ours, stood the betrayal I had feared yet refused to acknowledge. The image is one I cannot erase, the closeness, the intimacy, the unmistakable proof that love had been shared with someone else. My body froze, locked in place as if the ground itself had swallowed me whole. The sounds in the room blurred, my vision narrowed, and all I could feel was the weight of my own heartbeat pounding violently against my chest. Time slowed. 1,000 thoughts rushed through me at once, yet I could not speak, could not move. Shock burned through my veins, mingled with disbelief so sharp it nearly knocked me down. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to unleash the fury that was rising inside me, but my voice failed me. Instead, I stood there in silence, my presence alone louder than any words could have been. Their faces turned toward me, expressions shifting from surprise to guilt, and in that instant, the reality I had clung to shattered completely. I felt a strange detachment, as if I was watching someone else's life unravel. My mind replayed every smile, every late night, every whispered doubt I had silenced. All of it led to this moment, this cruel unveiling of a truth I had never wanted to believe. Betrayal didn't come with warning sirens or dramatic gestures, it came quietly, hidden in plain sight, until it was laid bare in front of me with brutal clarity. I remained rooted, numbness wrapping around me like a prison. I couldn't cry, couldn't rage, couldn't do anything but stare at the life I thought I knew collapsing before my eyes. It was in that paralyzing stillness that I realized something vital. Trust, once broken in this way, is not wounded, it is destroyed. And though I didn't know it then, the person who had stepped through that door would never be the same again. The silence after that moment was heavier than any argument could have been. For a few seconds, no one spoke, though their guilty expressions screamed more loudly than words ever could. My partner stammered, trying to piece together explanations that sounded hollow even before they left their mouth. Apologies mixed with excuses, rushed promises, and desperate claims that it meant nothing. But those words fell flat, landing like broken glass around me. I didn't need explanations, I had seen enough. What hurt wasn't just the act itself but the choice, the deliberate betrayal of trust that had been built over years. Anger surged through me, but it was laced with sorrow so deep it threatened to pull me under. I wanted to demand answers, to ask why I wasn't enough, but I stopped myself. There is no answer that can soothe the sting of betrayal. Every sentence they spoke only widened the distance between us. I realized then that my silence was not weakness, it was power. I had already lost too much to let more be taken from me in that moment. So I stood tall, and instead of shouting, I simply walked away. In the days that followed, the weight of the betrayal pressed harder. Every memory replayed itself with new meaning, and what once felt warm now burned with bitterness. Simple routines became painful reminders: the empty chair at breakfast, the silence where laughter used to be. I mourned not only the relationship but also the version of myself who had trusted so completely, who had believed love was unshakable. Grief does not only come from death, it comes from the loss of illusions too. But pain has a strange way of forcing growth. Slowly, I began to understand that their betrayal was not a reflection of my worth but of their choices. I had loved fully, trusted completely, and remained true. That was not weakness, that was strength. What they broke was not me but the bond they were entrusted to protect. The nights were long, the tears heavy, but little by little, I began to reclaim myself. Healing wasn't immediate. Trust once shattered leaves scars that do not fade quickly. Yet with each passing day, I learned to stand a little stronger, to breathe a little easier. I found comfort in small victories: a morning without tears, an evening spent in peace, a laugh that felt genuine again. I learned that betrayal might change you, but it doesn't have to define you. Looking back now, I see that opening that door ended one chapter but began another. I lost the life I thought I had, but I gained clarity, resilience, and a deeper understanding of my own strength. Betrayal may cut deeply, but it also reveals the truth we need to face, no matter how painful. And in that truth lies the possibility of freedom, healing, and a future built not on illusions, but on honesty.